Hey everyone, got a Tuesday afternoon here. Normally I'd be at the day job, but unfortunately this morning, when I went out to start my car, which we have here in the background, didn't want to crank. Lots of battery juice, fuel pump kicks on, you can hear it clearly, no cranking. So I ended up getting my neighbor. We tried bump starting it a couple times, didn't have any luck, ended up getting his truck, dragging it down the road, about a block before it actually want to bump start. Sorry for the background noise. Middle of the day, lots of traffic going by. Unfortunately, I am on a fairly busy street. So I ended up bump starting the car, got it into the garage here, was able to move Project Zero over a little bit, enough to get the car in here, and shut it off after running for 5 minutes. Wouldn't restart. So thinking a starter, and decided to tear into it. So I've got the intake all out of the way, gained access to the starter. I've also checked all my terminals over at the strut tower there, make sure they were nice and clean, no corrosion. I did have a little bit earlier this year, and that actually kept me from starting the car. So just double check, make sure that wasn't a problem. Everything was good and clean. Reapplied some dielectric grease, and now I'm at the point where I'm gonna pull that starter out. Unfortunately, I am about 30 minutes away from the major city, which my part suppliers are in, and they even happen to have one of these starters sitting on the shelf. No idea why. Even the parts guy at the counter couldn't tell me why he had one. He has a 3 Series SUV and thought he might have ordered it for his at some point, but then recalled that he hadn't. So lucky, I just have to get this one out and then find a way to get to town and get that, pick it up, throw it in, hope for the best. So here we go. Got my nice collection of tools all strung out on the bench here. Throttle body and elbow, intake manifold, air box, got the wiper cowl, engine covers, everything's all sitting down there. Not too bad to do. It was a little over an hour, so not terrible. I've never actually had to dig too far into this engine bay. Luckily, I've had the rocker cover off when I first got it, doing new gasket, a couple other seals in there, and this little eccentric shaft sensor. But other than that, I haven't had to fiddle around in there too much, which has been nice. It's been pretty reliable. This one, not so convenient. Looking at the date stamp on this, it is 2006, so this is the original starter. I guess it's done pretty well. It's just not so nice when you need the car to work and it doesn't. Almost there. It's a pretty serious starter bolt. Goes through the bell housing, the block, and all the way through the starter. That was a little more substantial, but again, being aluminum, it weighs nothing. Starter removed. Original BMW. So doing a little more cleanup in the bay here. Just on the actual intake ports where the gasket mating surface is. It was a little corroded, not terrible. A little bit of dirt built up over the years, and just want to try and clean that up before we put everything back together. So I had some paper towel or tissues actually stuffed in the intake ports while I was working on things, just so no debris would fall in there, as well as when I was using the die grinder with the 3M soft green rubber kind of fingery disc. Got one here, one of these. So these are super gentle, flexible. They don't chew into the aluminum the same way as your fiber discs. Highly recommended. Anything else just eats the material away, especially aluminum. It's really soft. So I got that all cleaned up. Now I just need to go get my starter. I'll give you guys a little bit of a look here though. Something I found intriguing was actually the shape that they put into the intake runners. They're not just an oval or a square or standard shape. It's actually the profiling that they've put into the walls. I'll give it a little closer here. Hopefully you can see it. So if you look right down here, we actually have multiple flutes going here. We've got a center rib, then a low spot, then another flute there and there. It smooths around the sides, and then we have another 4 flutes across the top, multiple on the bottom again. So it's pretty cool. I've never actually seen that before. Try and get in there. Obviously there's something for performance or flow characteristics or emissions or whatever the engineers have concocted into that, but just found it really unique. Thought you guys might too. Got our protective tissues back in there till we get back with the new starter. Don't want anything falling in there. There really shouldn't be anything since nobody's going to be in the shop here, but it never hurts. We are back. I've lost all my daylight outside, but I have gained a nice new starter. Everything looks good on it. First thing I do usually, just set them on the bench side by side. I know it may seem silly to some people, but it never hurts to double check. You don't know if something got put in a wrong box. Make sure they at least kind of resemble each other. We look all good there. The only thing I found on this one is it actually came with the lock washer, but not a nut for there. So always good to double check that if you are going in and dropping off your other starter when you're picking up your new one for the core charge. Before you leave, double check the box, make sure that you've at least got all the hardware, because if not, you can at least grab that before you leave the parts store, get home, and realize you don't have the proper one for that. So we're going to go ahead, test fit this, make sure you don't have any clearance issues with this. On the original one, it's nice and machined here. This one has a bit of kind of sandblasting unevenness there, so just going to double check, make sure that doesn't bind up going in there. Then we'll get back on the reassembly. All right, just test fitting this in here. It's a good thing I did. It's really tight. I don't want to use the bolts to draw it in. I'd rather clean up a little bit around our mating surface here. As you can see, it's actually started to shine that up where it's been rubbing. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Also, another thing that I did off camera was I took the bolt and sent it through here. A lot of the times, this doesn't look like the case on this. It looks like it's unfinished, but a lot of times you'll get these, they'll be painted. They'll get paint or a coating inside those threads, or when they're blasting them, they'll get burred. And you always want to make sure that that bolt goes through nice and clean before you try and put it on the car, so it's not a nightmare to get it back in. Alright, we've got our cleaned up starter here. I just took a small file, pocket file, went around the edges here. Just took a little bit of that rough texture off. We'll see how it fits now. Oh, perfect. So get these bolts in and then start on our reassembly here. Something to be cautious of, they are aluminum bolts. I believe I mentioned that earlier, but just be cautious. Don't hang off of them. They're not going to take the torque. Don't forget to remove your paper towels first. That wouldn't turn out very well. Hey guys, another night in the shop. Unfortunately, the other day, just as I was getting things together, my camera died, so you missed out on my level of disappointment when I got back in the car, hit the button, and nothing happened. Everything lights up in the instrument cluster, fuel pump kicks on, no cranking whatsoever. Brand new starter in there. So I did some testing, checked cables at the back, make sure there's no corrosion on the connections that go on the battery posts. There's also a pass-through right in the front of the battery box on these cars. I pulled that apart, checked it out, no corrosion on them either. Really baffled. So I actually went to the point of checking, making sure I had 12 volts at that post there, which I did as before. I put 12 volts from there right to the signal wire on the starter before I had anything pulled apart here, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Not even a click. No engagement whatsoever. So I just ripped everything apart here again, and as you can see, I've got cables hooked up to a battery, and as soon as I touched that negative cable on that battery, the starter just clunked. Didn't crank over, just clunked. So I wrapped on the side of it with a small pry bar handle, and then it cranked over. Brand new starter, complete garbage. Unfortunately, all that work has to be done over again. It comes with a lifetime warranty. I certainly didn't think I'd have to take advantage of it that quick. Having to do a lot more extra work and also leaving me stranded for another couple days. Luckily, I have a really nice neighbor next door, lent me their SUV for a couple days. I was able to get back and forth to work. Absolutely awesome. Thank you, Adam, for that. Really helped me out a lot. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to call the parts store in the morning, see if they happen to get another one of those starters in yet, and have to switch them out again. Definitely not how I wanted to spend my weekend, but I am super glad that I did get to the bottom of this, because it was kind of driving me crazy. I checked fuses and relays before I got to this point the other night, and everything checked out perfect. Unfortunately, that is no good, but at least I got to the bottom of it. I can hopefully get another one tomorrow, put that all back together. I now have wheels to be able to go pick that up. The other night I was very, very fortunate. A co-worker who just moved up the road a couple months ago came and dropped that by for me. Thank you, Cheryl. That was amazing, but it was no good. So short-lived high, but I'm glad I got to the bottom of it, and see if we can't get it all resolved tomorrow. We have some success. I got my new starter in, made sure to bench test it before installing it in the car, got it put in there before putting the intake all back on. I actually went ahead, just hopped in the car and hit the button, and in the midst of getting all tied up with all this bad starter problems, I actually forgot that I was putting that new starter in as a precautionary measure, because when I took the old one out, I bench tested it and it spun, but because it was original, I thought I might as well go ahead. I had all this stuff apart, put a new one in there so it's not the middle of the summer or 3-4 months down the road and that original starter dies. So went back to kind of the beginning and testing things. I put power to that starter, ground to the jump post over here, sent signal to that start wire, nothing happened. Put the ground cable onto the starter body and it cranked over. So I determined that I had a bad ground cable, which I had looked at earlier. Even the very first day when I was pulling things apart, I checked it. Look at the one end, it looked okay. Look at the other end, it looked okay. There's a bracket way down on that frame rail there. Can't see, it's kind of buried, but where the frame rail actually dips down underneath the floor pan, there's a bracket, and it was covering exactly where that cable was broken. So I thought I might have had a corroded connection at the top here. Decided to take it off, and as soon as I undid it, it fell down because it wasn't connected. Made a new one there, put it all back together, hit the button, car cranks over. So we're good that way. Unfortunately, I am waiting on a couple other pieces. They did have to come from the States. We have these heated PCV tubes. They're made of essentially a corrugated or convoluted tubing, like a hose loom. Not overly durable. They put a heater on it and then wrap it in foam. 15 years old. Didn't work so well. That's the upper one. It came apart when I originally pulled the intake off. No big deal. I expected something to kind of happen there. This lower one here though, when I pulled the intake off the second time, it didn't like the disturbance. I was really trying to be careful to not destroy that, and just moving that intake a little bit, it decided to let go. So they're coming from the States. Unfortunately, I don't have running video for you guys this week, but the car does crank over. We're all good to go. Doing a little bit more maintenance while I'm in there, belts, some pulleys, just a little freshen up on a couple things while the car's off the road. So really looking forward to having it back together for this weekend. We'll be good to go. Feels really nice just to get everything sorted. Gonna finish this video up here for now for this week. Just want to level with you guys for a minute. Got some news the other day that a very dear friend of mine from high school actually passed away. And the past year, everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic definitely takes a toll on a lot of people. I know a lot of people are financially struggling. Some aren't working whatsoever. There's the mental stress of everything going on in the world. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So Dan, really gonna miss you. And unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of time spent with him after the high school years, but a lot of fond memories back in those days. And I know he had a large impact on a lot of people's lives. Guys, mental health and well-being is a huge, huge thing. And if you've got problems, I know a lot of us struggle from it. I know I myself, there are days that you have that are really rough. And it's no fun. I've said it before with a lot of other things, but your friends are super, super important. Reach out to them, vent, let them know what's going on. If you're having troubles, reach out to those people. If you need, go get professional help, speak with them. Those people are there to help you, and don't be ashamed of it. It happens to a lot of people, guys, girls, everybody alike, and everything that's going on in the world just makes it that much harder right now. Take care of yourselves, guys. Be safe. Go seek those professionals' help. That's what they're there for. Take care of your guys. Take care of yourselves. And I really hope that some of this content that I'm creating over the last bit is something that you can kind of just watch, lose yourself in, and not have to worry about what's going on with everything else. Thank you guys again for watching, for your support. We'll be back next week with some more Fox Body content, and I hope you guys have a great week.